Good evening, everyone. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV. There is more Epstein files controversy related news tonight, which I'm sure a bunch of you have heard by now. President Trump has said he has told Pam Bondi to release grand jury testimony related to Jeffrey Epstein. Is that going to be enough for all the people out there who've been calling for the release of the Epstein files? I don't know. Are people going to be satisfied with this? Are they not going to be satisfied with it? What's even going to be in this that's released? I have no idea. I don't know. But we'll talk about it a bit here. And we'll read some of your comments on the year. That's what we'll do. Some of our viewers are saying they're not going to be satisfied. All right. One of our viewers said, we want all the evidence. All right. So let's get into this. Let's get into this. Here, look. See what he said? Based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein. He's been saying the last few days it should not be that big of a story. He's been saying people really shouldn't care about this. He says, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent, relevant, important, I guess. We'll see what she deems pertinent. Grand jury testimony, subject to court approval. Subject to court approval. So is the court going to approve this? This scam, he's saying something is a scam here. I'm not sure what. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. Yes, not tonight. As Junior Von Clare said, not tonight. But Pam Bondi said, oops, that doesn't work. Pam Bondi said, President Trump, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts. By the way, so as I understand it, a grand jury, my understanding is that this must be grand jury transcripts, which is, so when the federal government charged Epstein, was it 2019 when he was charged with federal crimes? When the federal government arrested and charged him, they would have gone, I presume they would have, don't you always have to go to a grand jury for federal charges? I'm not sure. But the idea is that in this case they did. So they went to a grand jury, and to get the charges, they have to present the evidence to a grand jury who has to approve charging him. That doesn't mean they have to, it's a different burden of proof. They don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt he's guilty. There's a lesser burden of proof. So basically, the testimony would be what was said in the hearings when the federal prosecutors were telling a grand jury, hey, charges against this person are warranted. So I don't even know how much they talked about with the grand jury. They don't have to give a grand jury all the evidence they have. They just need to get a grand jury to agree to approve charges, that charges are warranted. So I don't know, and I don't know this case well enough to know what might be in that grand jury testimony. Will any of it be redacted? What will be released? Will any of what's released be censored at all for various reasons? Will the court not allow some of it to be released? I just don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what to expect. But anyways, One of our viewers, Andy Marshall, says that's not the list. Some people believe the government is in possession of some sort of client list of Jeffrey Epstein's, a purported list of purported people who he supplied underage women to. Some people claim that the government is in possession of such a list. That's not. We don't know that that's true. I mean, some people believe that that's the case. There are some people who know a lot about this who believe there is no such list. Anyways, so we'll have to see, when will this supposed release of grand jury testimony happen? I don't know. What will be in the release? I don't know. Is this something that President Trump is doing to try to get people to be less angry about the whole thing? Because he has been getting a lot of criticism from a lot of the criticism is coming from his supporters, people who are supporters of his, saying that he has not released enough material about Epstein, saying that he's playing it down too much. And he's been posting some very negative things about people who are calling out for more Epstein releases. So is this at all being done just to try to satisfy people? Is it being done at all to try to make his base feel better about Pam Bondi? Because many Trump supporters have been criticizing Pam Bondi and saying she's not releasing enough, and saying she promised us more and she's not giving it to us. So how much of this is that? I have no idea. I don't know. Always Chasing the Rain thinks it will all be blacked out. So I just, who knows what all of this is about? I can't tell you. Sarah says distraction from his health issues? I don't know that was such a huge story. I mean, well, maybe we'll talk about that later. Let's see. Hey, let me thank our moderators for being here. Hold on a second here. I appreciate it. Oops, hold on. Over there on Twitch, we have moderating right now Idaho Star, McBritches, and Sarah. Thank you. Thanks to K. Larry Body, who's over there on Facebook, and Margaret Riley. And also thanks to Kristen McConnell Gates and Amy Cluck for the Facebook stars. It's so nice of you. Thanks also Roberts Mayqueen, who is moderating. And Linda Belk, Larry, Misha moderate for us on X. Hey, I also owe a thank you to... I also want to thank Waltham, Mass. For the memberships. Groovy Goose, The Alaska, and Shorty6890 for your support. Joker, thanks for being a member. And Minnesotager, Rusty Max, Tonya Bologna, The Fiend 83, Machiavelli Sux Twogo, A. Wendy and Nina Drew and Schaff. Thank you. And Allison Hargroves, who says, who started all the theories? I mean, there have been theories about what's going on with Jeffrey Epstein for years. I can't tell you who started them. I don't know that one person started them. Probably lots of people started them. Oh, distraction from articles, says Owen Foley. Someone might wonder about the timing of this. Earlier tonight, several hours ago, an article came out in the Wall Street Journal claiming that Trump had written a birthday letter or a birthday note to Jeffrey Epstein back in 2003, and the Wall Street Journal article claimed that in the letter, one of the things Trump said was hold on, happy birthday and may every day be another wonderful secret. Now, President Trump has been angry about that and denying it tonight. So I think one of our viewers was suggesting, oh, is he coming out with this now tonight to just get attention off the whole letter thing? I mean, he is talking about the letter thing. He just posted again about the letter thing. He just posted about the letter thing 25 minutes ago. Look what he said. The Wall Street Journal printed a fake letter, he says, supposedly to Epstein. These are not my words, not the way I talk, and also I don't draw pictures. I told Rupert Murdoch it was a scam, that he shouldn't print this fake story, but he did, and now I'm going to sue his ass off, and that of his third-rate newspaper. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So he had posted something like that, a longer version of that before. But he posted this after posting the post about the grand jury testimony. That's his second post about this tonight. His first post about this was about an hour ago. About 2 hours ago. So I just read you the one he posted half an hour ago. About 90 minutes before that post, he posted this on True Social. The Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch personally were warned directly by President Donald J. Trump that the supposed letter they printed by President Trump to Epstein was a fake, and if they print it, they will be sued. Mr. Murdoch stated that he would take care of it, but obviously did not have the power to do so. The editor of the Wall Street Journal, Emma Tucker, was told directly by Carolyn Levitt and by President Trump that the letter was a fake, but Emma Tucker didn't want to hear that. Instead, they are going with a false, malicious, and defamatory story anyway. President Trump will be suing the Wall Street Journal, News Corp, and Mr. Murdoch shortly. The press has to learn to be truthful and not rely on sources that probably don't even exist. President Trump has already beaten George Stephanopoulos, ABC, 60 Minutes, CBS, and others, and looks forward to suing and holding accountable the once great Wall Street Journal. It has truly turned out to be a disgusting and filthy rag, and writing defamatory lies like this shows their desperation to remain relevant. If there were any truth at all on the Epstein hoax, as it pertains to President Trump, this information would have been revealed by Comey, Brennan, Crooked Hillary, and other radical left lunatics years ago. It certainly would not have sat in a file waiting for Trump to have won 3 elections. Yet this is yet another example of fake news. Okay. So that was 2 hours ago. Then he posted a shorter version about half an hour ago. And in between, he posted the thing about the Epstein grand jury testimony, which is, in theory, the topic of this stream. Here, hold on. I'll just show that to you one more time. I'll just show it to you one more time. Based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. Okay. Whew. All right. I want to read some of your comments. We're going to talk about this. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing going on. Here's a headline, by the way. Trump asks for release of grand jury documents in Epstein case. That's from Reuters. Okay, hang on a moment here. So, first of all, what do you? I'm going to read some comments here. I don't know what you. Thanks by the way to Lisa Perkins for the Facebook stars. Thank you, Lisa, and also Shaft. Thanks for your support. Do you guys think that these whatever document release this is going to be, will have lots of juicy new? Juicy is the wrong word. Important new details in it. I don't know. Chris KNIA says pertinent new information. Pertinent information, who determines what is pertinent? Yeah, we mentioned that before. I don't know what pertinent means. I mean, it means like important or relevant, but I don't know who decides that. Hold on a second here. Mojo Glow says, we will never seen the list not in the club. Real White Comedy says there should be complete transparency. Political Gamer says, Policial Gamer says, if it were incriminating, they wouldn't release it. Ballet Tuna says, at best, it will only raise more questions. Jazzy Renee says, probably similar stuff they had in those binders. Also, I don't know. There have been a lot of documents already released about Epstein, the Epstein case, or maybe certainly the federal case, but there was also a state case. So I don't even know, like, has some grand jury stuff already be released? Will it come out and then will someone who actually knows what's out there say, oh, this is basically similar to a lot of stuff that's already out there? Again, I'm not an expert on all the documents that exist about Epstein. There's a bunch of information that has been released in the past. The Sugaro thinks if it hasn't gotten leaked by now, it's never coming out. John Doe says, what they release will only safeguard those who are in favor at the moment. LUL. The story would have come out years ago if we were ever going to get the truth. For those who don't know, I know most of you know this, but for those who don't know, Jeffrey Epstein was a financier. And he was, he was convicted in 2008 on state charges for procuring a child for prostitution and soliciting a prostitute. And then he was arrested in 2019 on charges, federal charges for the sex trafficking of minors. So there are these questions about, like, he was never prosecuted for this case because he died in jail. And the authorities say he committed suicide by hanging. He had died awaiting for his trial. But there are these questions about whether he supplied women to others and who that might have been. Many people want to know, many people think some people think that the government this is the Wikipedia page, by the way. Some people believe the government has evidence that it has not released that would shed light on, that would show that famous people were being supplied underage women by, underage girls by Epstein. Some people think this. Some people think the government is sitting on evidence. Now, what really ramped up things with these complaints about the government and not releasing more information was about 10 days ago, there was this memo that came out from the FBI and the Justice Department that basically said, we're not releasing anything else about Epstein. And among people who are currently in power at these places, like Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, all of them have suggested in the past, I believe, that there is more that the government has to be released about Epstein. That would be informative, and that should be released. So here is this, I believe the date of this was July 7th, on or about July 7th. The Justice Department and the FBI released this memo. The big controversy going, I mean, I don't want to say nobody cared about this before 10 days ago, because that would be utterly false. But the calls for more information to be released, the controversy has really ramped up since this memo came out. And again, this memo came out about 10 days ago. So it says Justice Department and Federal Bureau of Investigation. So let's just look at this memo. It says, as part of our commitment to transparency, the Department of Justice and the FBI have conducted an exhaustive review of the investigative holdings related to Jeffrey Epstein. So they've gone through the material that they have related to the investigation of Epstein. To ensure the review was thorough, the FBI conducted digital searches of its databases, hard drives, and network drives, as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas where responsive material may have been stored. These searches uncovered a significant amount of material, including more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. The files relating to Epstein include a large volume of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. By the way, it doesn't say that all that child sex abuse material is of Epstein. It just says child sex abuse material and other pornography. They say teams of analysts, agents, attorneys, and privacy and civil liberties experts combed through the digital and documentary evidence with the aim of providing as much information as possible to the public while simultaneously protecting victims. Much of the material is subject to court-ordered sealing. Only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. Again, the FBI and Department of Justice say the material they have about Epstein does not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. So right there, they're saying, well, the evidence doesn't show that anyone else did anything wrong. Through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials and will not permit the release of child pornography. So they're saying, we're not releasing any of this material we have, any more of it. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. This is from the FBI and Department of Justice about 10 days ago. Okay? So they say there's no client list. They say we have nothing, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Now, I don't know if there's some weird legalistic way of reading that, which is like, well, they say we didn't uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation because it's past the statute of limitations, so you couldn't have a legal investigation. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just showing you what they said. But the general idea they're putting out there is we don't have information about other people doing stuff wrong. That's the general tone of what they're saying here. Consistent with prior disclosures, this review confirmed that Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims. Terrible. Each suffered unique trauma. Sensitive information relating to these victims is intertwined throughout the materials. This includes specific details such as victim names and likenesses, physical descriptions, places of birth, associates, and employment history. One of our highest priorities is combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims. Perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein serves neither of those ends. Again, this is the Department of Justice and the FBI about 10 days ago saying perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein serves neither of those ends. To that end, while we have labored to provide the public with maximum information regarding Epstein and ensured examination of any evidence in the government's possession, it is the determination of the Department of Justice and the FBI that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. There you go, 10 days ago. No further disclosure of Epstein material would be appropriate or warranted. After a thorough investigation, they continue, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell at Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City on August 10, 2019. This conclusion is consistent with previous findings, including the August 19, 2019 autopsy findings of the New York City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the November 2019 position of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York in connection with the investigation of the federal correctional officers responsible for guarding Epstein, and the June 2023 conclusions of the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General. The conclusion that Epstein died by suicide is further supported by video footage from the common area of the special housing unit where Epstein was housed at the time of his death. As DOJ's Inspector General explained in 2023, anyone attempting or entering or attempting to enter the tier where Epstein's cell was located from the SHU common area would have been captured by this footage. The FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed that from the time Epstein was locked in his cell around 10:40 p.m. on August 9, 2019, until around 6:30 a.m. the next morning, nobody entered any of the tiers of the SHU. During this review, the FBI enhanced the relevant footage by increasing its contrast, balancing the color, and improving the sharpness for greater clarity and viewability. The full raw and enhanced videos are available at the following links. As many of you know, there is a missing minute or so, clearly visible on the video, according to the time code. We can talk about that later. I don't want to get distracted on that right now, but I know a number of you know about that already. Anyways, so this memo came out about 10 days ago from the Department of Justice and the FBI, and they said they've looked over all their evidence. There's no evidence that anybody else. Basically, there's no evidence that anybody else did anything wrong, anything illegal. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. They said that there is no evidence, that there was no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. And also they said they are not going to release, no further disclosure of Epstein-related material would be appropriate or warranted. That's what they said 10 days ago. Well, there's going to be some further disclosure. We just found that out tonight because Pam Bondi says, President Trump, we are ready to move, because President Trump told Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony, subject to court approval, and she said, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts. Okay, so anyways, so that is already a positional change from the memo, because the memo said no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. That's what the DOJ and FBI said. President Trump thought it was warranted. So maybe it's not a position change because President Trump is the one who ordered it released. Whew. Okay. So there is, again, the controversy really ramped up after this memo came out saying we're not going to release anything more. Further, it kind of took a shot at people who said there was more to this when it said perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein serves neither of those ends. Star Troopian says Trump yelled for years calling for the info. Now he won't and is coping weird. Paula Thompson says, who gets to decide what is pertinent? That I do not know. Maybe Pam Bondi? Thank you, Cola Buds, who wants Ghislaine Maxwell's side of the story. She is currently in prison, Ghislaine Maxwell. She was the longtime romantic partner of Jeffrey Epstein. She was found guilty of child sex trafficking and other offenses in connection with the deceased financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. She was convicted in 2021, says Wikipedia. She was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment. Thank you to Easton79, Easton79. I think that's Aaron Easton, who thinks they should release everything. They should be done with government secrets. They work for the people. Courts should be open to the public. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you also, Allison Hargroves, who says the key word is pertinent. Thanks also to Just Me Leia for the gift memberships. That's very nice of you. Thank you also to Rod Remex, UG3978, who says, who are in the videos? So the videos talked about in the memo here, I don't know who's in them. In the memo from the FBI and the Justice Department, it said that the files relating to Epstein include a large volume of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. First of all, they make this sound like it's downloaded stuff that does not have Epstein or his victims in it. That's what that sounds like. I'm not sure. As for the images and videos of victims, I don't know who is in them. Are there are non-victims in there with the victims doing things? I do not know. It does say here that where is it here? It talks about not releasing things. Yes. They say, we will not permit the release of child pornography. So I don't know if they have videos showing Epstein interacting with these victims or anybody else. I don't know. It doesn't say there. Now, maybe some of you who are experts on the case know this. By the way, thanks to Florian Meyer as well. Florian is wondering why the world is interested in this story if it's not affecting their country. Well, what I would say is, sometimes, I mean, a lot of people get interested in stories that don't directly affect their country. But maybe some people think it could indirectly affect their country. Anyways, interesting theoretical question by Florian Meyer. Thanks to Ed Wiebe for the membership. Let's see here. JASFT says, investigate them all. Martyr Loser King says, Prince Andrew? Thank you to AZ Intel's dad. One of the viewers said that some of the victims were international. Jimbo J. Baggins says, people want the truth. Pandora's Box said it is affecting the country. M. Melanie says, this is of international importance. By the way, I'll post a link to the FBI and Department of Justice memo so you can read it yourself if you haven't read it. I mean, it's very interesting, this memo from them. Zuja says this stuff affects the whole world. Zillane says there's so many narratives. What is the consensus? I don't know that there is a consensus. Thanks, by the way, to Mumed on Twitch for subscribing. Thanks to Big Dog Gaming, Engine number 9 on Twitch. Thank you. And also Rivertown Creations for subscribing. Shaq Food 2222. Thank you for Twitch, for support on Twitch. Oxytropus, thank you. Zozo is coming. Big Boss Now. Dark Crypto, Arizona Toaster, thank you. Simply Seedling, yes, we've been talking about that on the stream, the grand jury testimony. We'll talk about it again. Simply Seedling, thank you. Also thank you to Certified Music, who thinks they won't release what we think is there because it will implicate Israel in high-profile Democrats as well as businesses. Thank you, Turned Off, who says MAGA has been pushing those conspiracies for years and years. They're tangled in their own perpetuity. That's what Turned Off says. Thank you to Maina Salon, who says, what U.S. presidents will be implicated with the release of the list? Well, they say there is no list. The FBI and Department of Justice said our systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So they say they don't have one. All right, let me show you an update on this. Let's talk about what happened tonight. We haven't even talked about we'll talk about the Wall Street Journal story in a second. We'll talk about that in a second. But look. Trump orders release of grand jury transcripts from Epstein case. Reuters says President Trump's administration will ask a court to allow the release of grand jury testimony in the case of deceased convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, after some of his supporters reacted in fury to a report concluding there was no evidence to support long-running theories about his case. That's the memo I read you that came out about 10 days ago from the FBI and the DOJ. President Trump said, as we heard, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. Shortly after Trump's statement, Pam Bondi said, President Trump, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts. Some Trump supporters, says Reuters, some Trump supporters have raised questions about Epstein, the disgraced financier, after the Justice Department this month concluded that there was no evidence to support a number of long-held conspiracy theories about his clients and 2019 death in prison. Pam Bondi, says Reuters, had pledged months earlier to reveal major revelations about Epstein, including a lot of names and a lot of flight logs. Some Trump supporters have demanded the release of more information on Epstein, causing a rare fracture within his base of support. Trump has pushed back, calling the matter a hoax. Allegations that Epstein had been sexually abusing girls became public in 2006, and he was arrested that year before accepting a plea deal. Epstein died in 2019 in jail after he was arrested a second time and charged with federal charges with sex trafficking conspiracy. By the way, it's very interesting if you haven't. So the article I just read from Reuters said this has caused a rare fracture within Trump's base of support. It's very striking. If you go back the last few days and you look at the comments on Truth Social under some of President Trump's posts, where he basically says this isn't a really big deal and it's a hoax, and people who think there's more here are incorrect, and calls them names, and says this is getting too much attention. The vast majority of comments are quite negative. Now, you might claim that, oh, well, that's not really his supporters. That's like Democrats faking being his supporters and going over to Truth Social and posting fake comments. I gotta say, it doesn't, from what I've seen, I'd be surprised if that were the case. It really seems to me like that a lot of his supporters are not happy with him on this issue. I'm not saying all of them. Look, there are a number of prominent Democrats. Speaker Johnson came out a couple days ago and said that, and supported the release of more information. So it's quite something to go to Truth Social, his platform, the platform that he owns, I believe, and to see those. You usually do not see that under his posts. So it's quite interesting. And just to give you an example of some of the things he said about this on his Truth Social, I have to go back here and show you. Hang on, I'll just pick one or two to show you. I know a bunch of you have seen this, but just to show you what I'm talking about. Here, right here. This is where President Trump says he doesn't want the support of people anymore if they're going to keep making a big deal out of this Epstein thing and demanding more information. Here's what he says. This is from yesterday in the morning. He said, the radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again, just like with the fake and fully discredited Steele dossier, the lying 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell which the Dems swore had come from Russia. No, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom, and even the Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made-up story used in order to hide crooked Hillary Clinton's big loss in the 2016 presidential election. These scams and hoaxes are all the Democrats are good at. It's all they have. They are no good at governing, no good at policy, and no good at picking winning candidates. Also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Now, I'm not sure what he's referring to here. I'm not sure what he's saying the hoax is. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested during the first Trump administration and charged with federal crimes. So, and a lot of the people who have been calling for more release of information are Republicans. So I'm not positive what he's referring to. I just don't know. Maybe there's something specific he has in mind. Anyways, he says, their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. And my past supporters, capital letters, have bought into this, I'll say, BS. So he's saying his past supporters have bought into this BS hook, line, and sinker. Hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. He said, I have had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history. And all these people want to talk about, with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems, is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these now maybe he's saying the hoax is that there's that other people are involved. or something, or that the government has more information that's important that it hasn't released. I'm not sure. He says, let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success because I don't want their support anymore. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. So he's saying that supporters of his have been fooled by fake news and Democrats into believing the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and their weaklings, these are his past supporters, are weaklings for believing this, and he doesn't want their support anymore. That's just what he said. I mean, that's from yesterday morning. Okay. So it's quite interesting to see this. This is the second half of this is not about Democrats. It's not about news. He's talking to his supporters. That's what he's saying here in the whole second half of this. And then I'm not going to read through them, but there's a lot of comments from people who say they support him, but don't agree with him about this below that. So that's just an example of one of the things. It's quite striking to see. You don't normally see this. He doesn't commonly say negative things about his supporters like this. Okay, so anyways, so I don't know what to expect in this supposed upcoming release of grand jury testimony, which would be testimony when federal prosecutors were trying to get a grand jury to agree that charges were warranted against Jeffrey Epstein, which they did because he was charged with things back in 2019. I don't know what's going to come out of that, what's going to be released. Hey, let me take some comments here for you. First of all, I owe a couple thank yous, and then I'm going to take some comments from you. Brian Beelman, by the way, gave 50 people memberships. That's really nice of you, Brian. Very kind of you. Make sure you thank Brian or somebody else if they give you a membership or a gift subscription. Thank you so much, Allison Hargroves. I really appreciate it. Allison Hargroves, that's really generous of you. Thank you so much, Allison. Also, thanks N. Christopher Marshall, our new member. And also Nina Drew, Step 1. Step 1 says they should just release the first name so it won't actually implicate anyone specifically. Thank you. Read the Freaking Comics. Misfits Studio. Misfits Studio says Trump made this a national issue in his campaign. Thank you, Maina Salon. Okay. Let's read some more comments and feedback from you guys. Michael Forquette says CBS is saying Bondi is releasing transcripts tomorrow. Well, she said she's ready to move we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts. Will there be a release of transcripts tomorrow? I don't know. I don't know how long that might take, even if the court agrees. I'll check a couple sources here and see if I have any updates about this. I have to see if we have any breaking developments. Oh, Donald Trump Jr. posted LFG. I guess he's excited about this. That's from Donald Trump Jr. Yes, I am aware of what it means. Will Tifu 6XX says, will the grand jury testimony released be redacted or photoshopped. I do not know what's going to be released and what the condition of it will be, and whether it have redactions in it, and whether it will be significantly new. It's possible that stuff gets released and people who are experts about all the material, there's plenty of material that has been released related to Epstein. It's possible that stuff will get released and then experts will say, well, actually, that's really nothing new. That's stuff that, is similar to what's already out. I don't know. Paradise Tropico thinks it was weird for Don Jr. to post that. Well, I guess maybe what our viewer is saying is that President Trump is doing it like reluctantly. Like he's like, his take on it, President Trump, is that he says based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein. So he's basically saying, I don't want to do this, but people are just being ridiculous and paying all this attention, so fine, I'll do it. It's grudging. But then Don Jr. is like, let's FG. Siren, siren, siren. The dirt urchin thinks it's all pretend. President Trump wants all the stuff out. Chrome thinks everything we're looking for is sealed in that trial. Rudy thinks one name will be redacted. Bryce Lee thinks DJT Jr. cheering against his dad is funny. DLN says they won't produce anything, big cover-up. I've seen some people think that there was an event at the White House. When was this? A couple months ago? When some people were called in and given binders that said, I think, phase 1 of the Epstein material release or something like that. I believe that was organized by Pam Bondi, and many saw that as many were disappointed in what was released. So will there be disappointment in this release? Shorty thinks no one will be satisfied no matter what is released. By the way, thanks to Spiritual Sacrifices, who says, let's be very clear, America, what we want are the affidavits and testimony from the victims who named and described their perpetrators, with only the girls' names redacted. Anything less is a cover-up. Thanks also Just Me Leia, who says, I stood by Trump but refused to stand by someone that defends by hiding pedophiles. And I looked up to this man. I am sick from this blank. I hope this turns around. So Just Me Leia says she is a Trump supporter and she is not happy about all of this. Thanks, Brad B5759. Thanks also Christopher Small for being a new member. Punch Gut. Thank you. All right. Let's talk a little more about this. Going to read some more comments here. Thanks also Tatsiki over there on Twitch. And Justin Blair. Justin Blair thinks Trump is commenting about allegations about him. So Justin thinks that Trump, when he said that Trump thinks that everybody thinks he was involved and that's why they want him to release the material. I know what you're saying, Justin, but I don't, that would just, if you think like that's all he thinks people want, I mean, it just seems like it's hard to believe, for me to believe that Trump thinks his supporters who want this material released only want it released because they think he's involved. I mean, that doesn't even make sense, because President Trump is fully aware of the theories out there that famous people, I believe he's even talked about such theories, if I have this right, that famous people, not himself, are implicated. So I know what you're saying. Maybe when he says hoax, he's referring to claims that he was involved. But plenty of his own supporters want to see this released, not from a desire, not from a firm belief that he is involved. They might think other people are involved. But I do think that maybe part of his possibly part of his getting very upset about this is thinking that some people think he's involved. I mean, there's this whole Wall Street Journal story tonight, which he's not happy with. We didn't even talk about that really yet. Let's talk. Want to talk about that for a second? We didn't even talk about that. Look at this. XPL says, we wanted to go after whoever's involved. We want justice for the victims. Here, look. Hold on. One moment. Trump mired in Epstein controversy as Wall Street Journal reports on 2003 letter. By the way, thanks to AZ Intel's dad. Thanks for shouting out the mods. Thanks to OU Mike. Thank you, OU Mike. Hey, thanks to our moderators, too. Thanks, AZ, for shouting them out. And thanks to our moderators. I just want to thank some of them. Roberts May Queen, thank you so much for moderating. Also, over on Twitch, Bastion Girl, Idaho Star, thank you. On Facebook, Margaret Riley, Kay Lowry Body, Linda Belk, Misha, and Larry moderate for us on X. Let's see here. The BC Preacher says, seriously, can we even trust any of the government system at this point? Alan Artsakian says Prince Andrew was involved, so you can just imagine all the other high-profile and influential people being involved. To be clear, that's what Alan Artsakian said. And also to be clear, Prince Andrew Wikipedia page. In 2014, Virginia Giuffre, I'm probably if I'm pronouncing her Giuffre, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, alleged that as a 17-year-old, she was sex trafficked to Prince Andrew by convicted sex offenders Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Andrew denied any wrongdoing. Following criticism for his association with Epstein and Maxwell, he resigned from public roles in May 2020. And his honorary military affiliations and royal charitable patronages were removed by the Queen in January 2022. He was the defendant in a civil lawsuit over sexual assault filed by Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre in New York State. The lawsuit was settled out of court in February 2022. In the settlement, Andrew paid an undisclosed sum to Giuffre. That's from Wikipedia. She was an accuser of Jeffrey Epstein. I think that's the... You can read more about her in the... she actually sadly passed away recently. You can read more about her in the... on her Wikipedia page. Just to be clear, I don't even remember or know if I even knew, maybe at some point I knew, if her accusations about Epstein were ever proven in a court of law. So we'll say accuser right now, but that is not in any way to belittle her accusations. I just don't want to say anything incorrect. But anyways, that point aside, let's talk about the Wall Street Journal thing, because that's been a story today. And some of you were talking about that in the chat, and we haven't really spoken about this. Trump mired in controversy as Wall Street Journal reports on 2003 letter. The controversy over President Trump's handling of records from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation entered a new dimension today as Trump's administration struggles to make good on its promises to release details on the sex trafficking case involving a one-time friend of the now president. Yes, they were one-time friends. Trump promised a lawsuit after the Wall Street Journal today, actually this evening, described a sexually suggestive letter that the newspaper says bore Trump's name and was included in a 2003 album for Epstein's 50th birthday. Trump denied writing the letter, calling it false, malicious, and defamatory. That came after Trump in recent days has berated as weaklings supporters of his vying for more records from the Epstein probe after years of courting political support from those who have stoked claims of a cover-up in the case to protect wealthy friends of Epstein, who died in 2019 by suicide awaiting trial on federal charges of trafficking of underage girls. Trump has also shielded his attorney general from being questioned about the case after she walked back claims of the existence of a client list of elites who participated in Epstein's crimes, and has even taken to claiming without evidence that the files were doctored by Democrats. In an administration that prides itself on changing the narrative on negative storylines, the Epstein saga has had remarkable staying power, says AP, thanks in part to infighting at high levels of government, Trump's blistering criticism of his own base, and the head-scratching mystery of why documents that his own administration promised to unlock will remain buried seemingly for good. Today's disclosure, coupled with frustration from Trump-allied lawmakers on Capitol Hill, pushed Trump to abruptly reverse course tonight and direct Attorney General Pam Bondi to try to make some of the documents in the case public. Bondi said she would seek court permission tomorrow to release grand jury information, but it would require a judge's approval. And she and Trump were silent on the additional evidence collected by federal law enforcement in the sprawling investigation that Bondi last week announced she would not release. I'm going to take a few comments in a second. That was a nice little summary there. But about this letter that the Wall Street Journal talked about tonight, the letter revealed by the Wall Street Journal tonight was reportedly collected by disgraced British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell as part of a birthday album for Epstein years before the wealthy financier was first arrested. It was years before he was first arrested in 2006 and subsequently had a falling out with Trump. The letter bearing Trump's name includes text framed by the outline of what appears to be a hand-drawn naked woman. The letter bearing Trump's name to Epstein includes text framed by the outline of what appears to be a hand-drawn naked woman and ends with, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret," according to the Wall Street Journal. The outlet described the contents of the letter but did not publish a photo showing it entirely. Trump slammed the story. I'll show you again what he said about it. Vice President J.D. Vance also was critical of it. So here is what Trump said about this story. As I mentioned, he posted twice about it tonight so far. He said about an hour ago, Trump said, hold on, I'm putting it on the screen right now. The Wall Street Journal printed a fake letter supposedly to Epstein. Those are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures. I told Rupert Murdoch it was a scam. that he shouldn't print this fake story, but he did, and now I'm going to sue his ass off and that of his third-rate newspaper. Thank you for your attention to this matter. DJT. And about 90 minutes before that, Trump posted on Truth Social saying, the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch personally were warned directly by President Donald J. Trump that the supposed letter they printed by President Trump to Epstein was a fake, and if they print it, they will be sued. Mr. Murdoch stated that he would take care of it, but obviously did not have the power to do so. The editor of the Wall Street Journal, Emma Tucker, was told directly by Carolyn Levitt and by President Trump that the letter was a fake, but Emma Tucker didn't want to hear that. Instead, they are going with a false, malicious, and defamatory story anyway. President Trump will be suing the Wall Street Journal, News Corp, and Mr. Murdoch shortly. The press has to learn to be truthful and not rely on sources that don't even exist. President Trump has already beaten George Stephanopoulos, ABC, 60 Minutes, CBS, and others, and looks forward to suing and holding accountable the once great Wall Street Journal. It has truly turned out to be a disgusting and filthy rag, and writing defamatory lies like this shows their desperation to remain relevant. If there were any truth at all on the Epstein hoax, as it pertains to President Trump, this information would have been revealed by Comey, Brennan, Crooked Hillary, and other radical left lunatics years ago. It certainly would not have sat in a file waiting for Trump to have won 3 elections. This is yet another example of fake news. So, lots of posting from President Trump tonight about Epstein stuff. And after he posted this first post about the Wall Street Journal story, then shortly after that is when he came out and said that based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. Whew. Dean R. thinks that's a good point. It would have been released if it implicated him. I don't even know what documents, I mean, the federal government has. They clearly have more documents that they haven't released. I read you their memo before where they said that the FBI and the Department of Justice said 10 days ago that they went through all their material and that it said the systematic review of the material revealed no incriminating client list. It said there was no client list. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. And they said, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. So they basically claim that there's nothing in that material that shows that other people committed crimes. That's what they said. That's their memo. Let's see here. Let me look at one quick thing. All right, let me read some more comments from you guys. The Crystal Lack said, didn't Elon say Trump is on the list? I forget what exactly Elon's posts said. Now the government is saying they have no list. There is no list. What was the Elon Musk post about it? I don't even remember. The exact wording. Did he say that Trump was on the Epstein list? Is that what he said? I can't remember. Some of our viewers are saying, I think Elon said it. But again, the government said there's no list. By the way, in the memo, really minor point, well, not necessarily, when it says only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. So, I don't even want to get into this. Before, if I said that this part said they had no material exposing additional third parties to allegations of wrongdoing, that doesn't really say that there. But basically, right down here, they said, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Right there. So they say there's no evidence they uncovered that would form the basis of a criminal investigation of anybody else who has not been charged. And all the evidence they have, right there. So they said it right there. That's from like 10 days ago. Department of Justice and FBI. Let's see. Chris said Elon implied Trump was on the list. He didn't explicitly state it. Well, I don't have the exact post in front of me at the moment, so I'm not going to worry at this point about the what exactly he technically said. But again, the government says there is no such list. There is no such list. The systematic review of all of our documents revealed no incriminating client list. They even put client list in quotes. Tatsiki says, I love this is the topic that our country chose to unite around. We all at least agree that all this needs to be out in the open. Thank you to Daryl's YouTube, who says he didn't have a blackmail list, Epstein. Is that so hard to believe? I owe some more thank yous here. Hold on a second here. Thank you to Betsy's Tag, who says, Democrats, Republicans, who cares? Get them all. Thank you, Robertian, who says, Trump has many drawings that are public. I wonder if the style will match that of the drawing mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. Thank you, Robertian. Kathy says, so who were the girls trafficked to? So it's an interesting point. He was charged with sex trafficking, but I believe that not all sex trafficking charges require you to be giving the girls to somebody else, or the people to somebody else. You know what I can probably find for you? I bet I can find the press release about him. Or the charging document. Right. So this is from 2019. Jeffrey Epstein charged with sex trafficking of minors. This is the press release from the Department of Justice from the first Trump administration from 2019. And what does it accuse him of? The indictment unsealed today alleges that between 2002 and 2005, Epstein sexually exploited and abused dozens of underage girls by enticing them to engage in sex acts with him in exchange for money. Epstein allegedly worked with several employees and associates to ensure he had a steady supply of minor victims to abuse, and paid several of those victims themselves to recruit other underage girls to engage in similar sex acts for money. Now, what it says here, sex acts with him. I don't even know if this press conference even talks about, if this press release talks about other people being involved. And then there's the actual, is this the charging document? Where is, I think I have the actual indictment. Hold on. Yeah, this is the indictment, I believe. USA versus Epstein. As set forth herein, over the course of many years, Jeffrey Epstein sexually exploited and abused dozens of minor girls at his homes. He did it. Yeah, and then the sex trafficking law, sex trafficking. Sex trafficking, count 2. Epstein willfully and knowingly did recruit, entice, and harbor, transport, provide, and obtain by any means person, knowing that that person had not attained the age of 18 in years and would be caused to engage in a commercial sex act, and did aid and abet at the time he recruited, blah, 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 blah. So just eyeing this, it appears to me that the indictment charges him with sex trafficking. But the way the sex trafficking law is written, you don't have to, you can violate the law on sex trafficking and not supply people to other people for sex. So I know it's a natural thing, and I get where the question comes from to say, well, he was charged with sex trafficking. So the government thinks he's supplying women to other people, right? Well, as I'm just eyeballing this right now, it looks like no, at least officially, at least in terms of what he's charged with, I don't believe he's charged with supplying girls to other people. Now, that doesn't mean that the government doesn't have evidence about that, but just to be clear, and I might be wrong here, but just from a quick look over of the press release and the indictment, it doesn't appear to me to allege that to charge him with supplying women to other people, supplying girls to other people. Now, maybe they have evidence about that. I don't know. But it's an interest. It's just, and I just want to point that out because I get the question. It's a weird word because when you hear trafficking, you think of somebody being a supplier. Danny Pace Fairy Hill Garden says you have to look into the court transcripts and testimony of the victims themselves, naming others they were trafficked to. So we did talk about that a little earlier when we talked about Virginia Giuffre. Giuffre or Giuffre? I'm going to say Giuffre. I'm probably getting it wrong. Where she claimed that she was trafficked to Prince Andrew at least 3 times when she was 17. That's what she claimed. So, but that was not something that Jeffrey Epstein was charged with, I don't believe, in the federal charges in 2019. We should do a poll about the new release. Hang on a moment here. We might do that in a second. By the way, a quick thank you to Kira Kiwi. Kira said that a sketch made by Trump sold for $30,000 at an auction. Is that true? I have no idea. There is an article from the New York Times in 2017 that says a Manhattan skyline sketch by Trump sells at auction for $29,000. I'll post a link to the article. You can look at the picture of the sketch. I think people are talking about his drawing because he says he doesn't draw pictures. And the Wall Street Journal article claimed today that he gave a letter to Epstein in 2003 that had a drawing of a woman on it. Didn't he say today, I don't draw pictures? He says, I don't draw pictures. Okay. Thanks also to Firestar, and Justin Blair, and Slides 380, and Awambo. Awambo says the release would create chaos whether Trump is on it or not. The Awambo thinks Trump has a gun on him and his family's back. There are way more powerful people than him. Awambo thinks Trump is under pressure to not release evidence. Thanks Sergey is Sergey. Who says, I wonder what Trump meant by calling Jeffrey Epstein a guy who never dies. Back on 7/12, isn't that what someone who tried to off someone would say? I can't remember if Trump used that language. I have to go look it up. Thank you, Sergey. Sergey. Thank you also, not applicable. And let me read some more comments from you guys. Maybe we'll do a poll. Hawk says, stop letting your emotions drive your thought process. Douthis says, didn't Trump say in an interview that if they released the information, some people would get wrapped up in it? I don't even remember. I don't even know all the things that Trump has said about this in the past. Let me see if I can quickly come up with something, like some quotes or something. I don't remember different interviews he's done or things he said about this on the campaign trail or something like that. AP does say that Trump suggested last year he was considering releasing information about the Epstein case if he won a second term. Oh, hold on a second here. MAGA faithful are angry about the Epstein case, says AP. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll just read a couple things from this. Figures like commentator Tucker Carlson, right-wing activist Laura Loomer, and former Trump advisor Steve Bannon claim that the government's handling of the case shows a lack of transparency. Anger over the case threatens to divide the MAGA faithful. A broken promise to release more information about the Epstein case has sparked outrage among some of President Trump's loyal supporters. The Justice Department said Epstein did not leave behind a client list. Attorney General Pam Bondi suggested in February the client list was on her desk, though she later said she was referring to the overall case file. Bondi also said officials were poring over a truckload of previously withheld evidence. The Justice Department concluded, however, that public disclosure would not be appropriate and that much of the material was placed under seal by a judge. That has angered right-wing influencers who were once bolstered by Trump's own claims on this case, but are now feeling their demands are being squelched by his administration. Epstein was a wealthy financier arrested in 2019 on federal sex trafficking charges. His former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, was charged with helping him abuse teenage girls. He was found dead in jail before his trial. The case attracted attention because of Epstein and Maxwell's links to famous people, including royals, presidents, and billionaires. It also led to some of the biggest conspiracy theories animating Trump's base. Conservatives, led by key figures in the MAGA movement, says AP, have pressed unsubstantiated claims that Epstein was murdered and that deep state actors in the government are hiding lists of his clients, videos of crimes being committed, and other evidence. Trump himself suggested there was a cover-up. Okay. Here's the thing from February. In February, far-right influencers were invited to the White House and provided with binders marked The Epstein Files Phase 1 and Declassified. The binders contained documents that had largely already been in the public domain. But Pam Bondi said in May there were tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. That fueled a belief that details about powerful figures had been suppressed. It's a new administration and everything is going to come out to the public, Bondi said at one point. Multiple people who participated in the criminal cases of Epstein and Maxwell told AP that they had not seen and they did not know of a trove of recordings along the lines of what Bondi had referenced. As I mentioned, the DOJ and FBI on July 7th said they're not releasing any more Epstein material. It was a huge retreat from what Bondi and others had previously claimed, and it prompted anger and more suspicion and conspiracy theories from the MAGA faithful. Some MAGA world influencers, including Laura Loomer and Glenn Beck, have explicitly called on Bondi to resign. Former Fox News personality Megyn Kelly called Bondi either lazy or incompetent. Oh, this is what some of you guys are talking about this. What had Trump said about Epstein before his second term? As far back as 2019, Trump suggested that Epstein's death was a cover-up and called for a full investigation. In retweeting a post by conservative pundit and comedian Terrence K. Williams, who suggested that former President Clinton may have been involved, Trump wrote that Epstein had information on Bill Clinton and now he's dead. When asked about his retweet, Trump said he was merely demanding a full investigation a day after then Attorney General Bill Barr said there had been serious irregularities at the prison where Epstein was being held. In a 2023 interview, Trump told Tucker Carlson he believed that Epstein had committed suicide, but he couched his response saying it was also possible that he had been murdered, a theory he said many people believed. Last year, Trump was asked on Fox News whether he would declassify documents regarding the September 11th attacks and the 1963 assassination of President Kennedy. He said, yeah. He was then asked about the Epstein files, and he said, yeah, I would, but then added, I think that less so because you don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because it's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world, but I think I would. Then in a cabinet meeting last week, Trump called it unbelievable and a desecration that people were still talking about this creep, given other pressing matters. By the way, we never even did a stream where we showed what Trump said in the cabinet meeting. Should we just show that? I know a bunch of you have seen it. But it's in the cabinet meeting when someone tried to ask Pam Bondi a question and Trump jumped in about Epstein and Trump jumped in and just was like, why are you asking about this? It takes 2 seconds. I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you. It takes 2 seconds. I have it right here. Hold on. I'll put it on the screen for you. This was July 8th. On July 8th, okay? I have it right here. A lot of people were talking about this. Here is the moment where someone tried to ask Pam Bondi about Epstein and Trump jumped in. This is from July 8th.
That way, okay. Her small business is bigger than almost all big businesses when you add it all up. But no, they are very respectful of our country. But the incentive is that they have the right to do business with us. Without that, they don't have the right to do business. I think it's coming up right here. And that would be okay too.
Hang on one second.
In the next 24 hours, will we hear a flurry of deals?
Yeah, we have a lot of them going out. But the deals are most.
Let me cue it up. Let me cue it up. I had the wrong time code. I got it for you.
Yeah. That's in bricks is getting a 10% charge.
Hang on.
In many respects, there were much cost and taxes. To just see
every night the video.
Some of the two tall Jones for the Dallas Cowboys, right? That is unbelievable. People still talk.
I got it. I got it right here. Here it is. Here it is. Sorry, I got it. All right, here it is. Sorry, I had the wrong time code written down. Here is July 8th cabinet meeting. Here you go.
Like you better.
If I could ask the Attorney General a question too.
Sure.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the set?
Yeah, sure. If I
could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. Yeah. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
On tariffs again, August 1st.
By the way, regarding the video, I know a lot of you have seen that as well. But just to show you what she's talking about. All right, hold on. I'll put this on the screen too. Why not? Hold on. Let me just throw this up there. While we're at it, just in case you haven't seen it. All right, hold on. Here it is. Where is... Here's the video. And what do we got? We got to go to 11:59. Is that what it is? I gotta get it queued up. That's 12:11. 11:48, 11:57. A little earlier. It's when it gets to 11:59, right? You'll see. This is the video that was released along with the memo by the Department of Justice and the FBI on July 7th that was supposed to prove that nobody had gone in or out of his cell the night before he was found dead. But as many of you know, the time code jumps on it, and she was just talking about it from that cabinet meeting the day after. In 20 seconds, you'll see it goes to right to midnight. Hang on, look at the clock there. You see the clock in the corner on the bottom left? I know a lot of you have seen this, but just for the people who haven't, or the people who want to see it again, I think in 9 seconds it changes. 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59. Oh, it's midnight. There you go. So there you go. Okay. I will say this about the thing. So whatever the explanation for it is, so suppose there is a perfectly reasonable explanation for it. It's just amazing that no one like sat and watched it all the way through before they released it. You know, you gotta watch it all the way through before you release it. You gotta make sure there's nothing wrong with it before you release it. You got to. You just have to. Stuff can go wrong with videos. And the camera shifted. Yeah, there's some I don't want to get into it right now. I think Wired had a story claiming that like 3 minutes had been missing or something like that, or something like. I'll post a link to the story. I don't want to get all into that right now. It's a whole other thing. Yeah, Wired has a story that says the FBI's Jeffrey Epstein prison video had nearly 3 minutes cut out. I don't want to get into that all right now. I'm posting a link in the chat. You can look it up yourself. I just posted the link for you, and you can read it. There it is. All right, let me take some more comments from you guys. Oh, we should do a poll. We should do a poll. Let me also make sure he hasn't posted again. Is he going to post again tonight? It's almost midnight. It's almost midnight, by the way. It's almost midnight. Is Trump going to post again about this tonight? That's not the poll. Oh, J.D. Vance. Hold on. J.D. Vance. I want to show you what J.D. Vance said about the Wall Street Journal letter. So J.D. Vance posted a couple things about the Wall Street Journal letter. He said, I got to do this first. He's the vice president. Where is the first one? I have to delete his naughty language. He used a little naughty language. So I'm gonna cover up his naughty language. Why is that like that? Why is that like that? Oh, I see. Hang on. Give me a second to just cover up the naughty language. Where is my... There it is. I need my little pen to draw over the language. Here it is. Okay, I covered up his... Oh, no, it didn't work. It will. It will. Oh, it didn't work. Why is this doing this? Okay, I covered it up. Forgive my language, but this, he's talking about the Wall Street Journal story tonight that came out and said Trump wrote a letter to, wrote a birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein back in 2003, and that one of the things it said when there was, happy birthday and may every day be another wonderful secret. J.D. Vance said, forgive my language, but this story is complete and utter BS. The Wall Street Journal should be ashamed for publishing it. Where is the letter? Would you be shocked to learn they never showed it to us before publishing it? Does anyone honestly believe this sounds like Donald Trump? He also posted, J.D. Vance. He also posted and said, I'll show you in a second what he said. Oops, I have to do it this way. Doesn't it violate some rule of journalistic ethics to publish a letter like this without showing it to the victim of this hit piece? Will the people who have bought into every hoax against President Trump show an ounce of skepticism before buying into this bizarre story? Fine Wine Today thinks it does sound like Trump. Hey, by the way, I owe a thank you to Jean-Paul Lachance. Jean-Paul Lachance, I think, just gave 100 people memberships. Do I have this right? Jean-Paul Lachance gave 100 people memberships? Is that what happened? Jean-Paul Lachance, it's so kind of you. Make sure you thank Jean-Paul Lachance or anybody else who gave your membership. 120? 130? Oh, no, it's 120. Jean-Paul Lachance gave 120 people memberships. Oh, my gosh. That's unbelievable. Jean-Paul Lachance, thank you so much. Did I miss some? I see 120 right in front of me. By the way, thanks to R.A. Clark, who thinks the Queen's office intervened with the FBI in regards to Prince Andrew. That's what our viewer R.A. Clark thinks. Thanks to Allison Hargroves for your support. Thank you, Allison. And also Kathy Grows Plants, who says, who sent Epstein money/payments? Something else that Kathy mentioned in her comment was a settlement in 2023 that I am between J.P. Morgan Chase and women who said Epstein abused them. And this was a settlement that followed, according to Reuters, embarrassing disclosures that J.P. Morgan ignored internal warnings and overlooked red flags about Epstein because he had been a valuable client. He was a client from 1998 to 2013. J.P. Morgan did not admit wrongdoing in agreeing to settle. Anyways, And the New York Times said that about that lawsuit that the victims claimed J.P. Morgan Chase ignored warnings about Epstein. Anyways, you can read about that online. I don't want to get on to that now. Thanks, Kathy, for mentioning it. Hang on. So, oh, and thanks, Lisa Sawyer, for the membership. Hey, we should do a poll. Let's go do a poll. The poll is now, what do you think about this poll? What about a poll on I don't know if this is going to make sense, this poll. We'll have to do a poll on whether it's a good poll question. So, President Trump tonight ordered, as we've been talking about, Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony, subject to court approval, about the Epstein case, the Epstein investigation. And Attorney General Bondi said, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts. So my poll question was going to be, will there be any big new, this is a reasonable poll question. I'm going to ask it. Will there be any big new revelations in the grand jury release? That's the poll question. Will there be any big new revelations in the grand jury release? All right, you can vote on it in the chat. I'm putting it in the chat right now. And then you can vote yourself, and I'll show you what people say. That's the way I'm going to phrase it. I think that is fair. All right, I have it now posted on YouTube and Twitch, and I'm going to post it on Facebook too. One moment here. Just give me a moment. I'm posting it on Facebook. Okay, I asked you guys, I said, assuming this grand jury testimony, these grand jury transcripts get released in some form. I guess I should have said transcripts. I said testimony. I apologize. You know, when I came on the air, I just didn't notice this. I'm going to change my headline to say transcripts. The video title says transcripts, and I put testimony. So I guess in theory there could be stuff in the transcripts that's not testimony, because maybe the transcripts will have like a news article or something. Anyway, I don't know. So just to be consistent, without getting into transcripts versus testimony, I will do this. I'm sorry for that I didn't have it saying that in the headline on screen. My bad. My guess is that at least most of the transcripts would be testimony. Well, no, I mean, because if the whatever, I don't even know how to. I'm not going to worry about this right now. If the prosecutors are speaking to the grand jury, does that count as testimony? Okay, that technical question aside, let's see what you guys said about this. I said to you guys, oh, is the poll posted on Facebook yet? Oh, I didn't post it on Facebook. It's posted now. All right, here we go. Okay, I said to you guys, this grand jury transcript release, will it have any big new revelations in it? Assuming it happens. Assuming it happens. Here is what you guys said. Over there on, now why am I not seeing this? Oh, there you go. 80% on YouTube say no. 80% say no on YouTube. So far on Facebook, 88% say no on Facebook. How about Twitch? What do they have to say about this? Twitch is 89% no. Hang on a moment here. One moment. So you guys are... Oh, what just happened? Sorry. Everything disappeared. Why did it all disappear? Let me get it back up on the screen for you. I see what happened. Here's what happened. All right, so YouTube is at 79% no. Facebook is at 89% no. And Twitch, just to show you again, is at 90% no. So you guys are skeptical that there will be any big new revelations in the grand jury release. Hey, by the way, thanks to Cece on Twitch for your support. Thanks to Shraki for subscribing on Twitch. Also, I think Jean-Paul Lachance just gave 50 more memberships. Oh my gosh. Guys, Jean-Paul Lachance has given, I believe, 170 memberships. 170 memberships. Unbelievable. Thank you so much. Thanks for voting in our poll. All right, you guys are skeptical. Now, if these grand jury transcripts come out tomorrow or whenever, and people are not satisfied, isn't it just going to get people angrier at the whole thing? That's a whole other question. Diego Medina says all redacted. By the way, thanks to Shraggy Stern. Thank you, Shraggy. All right. Let me see. Do we have any updates here? Oh, and thanks Shraggy. Shraggy Stern, thank you so much, Shraggy. It's very nice of you. Trying to read some more comments here. Nathaniel Lee sent me a post from Julia Davis, who posted a post from a book called Trump Never Give Up. Is that a book by Trump? There's a book called Trump I Never Give Up, and Julia Davis, who is with the Daily Beast, posted a quote from Trump Never Give Up where he says, "It takes me a few minutes to draw something." Remember, he said tonight on True Social that he doesn't draw pictures when explaining that his view is his position that the Wall Street Journal article was false about him tonight, and that the Wall Street Journal claimed he sent a letter to Epstein, and part of the letter in 2003, part of the letter was a drawing of a woman's body, and he said on True Social tonight, "I don't draw pictures." Thank you, Nathaniel, for sending that in. Andy Gunn says this stinks of the Warren Commission or any investigation of oneself. So he thinks that the investigation is compromised because the government is investigating itself, or has been investigating itself, or in theory was investigating itself. Teflon Arlo wrote in and said, "I think this is a way for Trump to get the people involved with Epstein list like Dershowitz Clinton to show themselves. No way Trump thinks this is a hoax." RLF Captures Our Viewer says, "It infuriates me that Trump makes it all political, blaming Democrats. He says little girls were R-worded and the world wants justice for all involved, whoever it may be." Barb thinks a grand jury transcript release will never happen because it's illegal for a course to release it. Let me see if I can find anything more about that. Hang on. At this point, there maybe some of the articles about this now have added stuff about the grand jury transcripts, what might be released. So the Washington Post has an article right now. Trump tells justice to seek release of Epstein grand jury testimony. The Washington Post says it was not immediately clear to which records Trump was referring to in his Truth Social post, where he said, as we've shown you, Trump said, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony, subject to court approval. So the Washington Post says it was not immediately clear to which records he was referring to. Okay, this is interesting. Federal grand jury testimony is by law confidential. The 2019 when Epstein was arrested, that was a federal case. That was in the first Trump administration. Federal grand jury testimony is by law confidential. And Trump said in the Post that the release is subject to court approval. Records from a state grand jury that investigated Epstein in 2006 were released last year by a Florida judge. All right, I got to read you this paragraph again. See, this is helpful perspective. Thanks to the viewer who I mentioned earlier who brought up the point about whether it would be legal to release the grand jury testimony. Hold on, I want to post this, and then I want to mention this paragraph again. This seems significant. So remember, a grand jury is where, hold on. A grand jury is a body that prosecutors go to, that they are required to go to in certain cases, I believe, they have to get a grand jury to approve, to sign off on the charges before the charges can be filed. They have to meet a certain evidential bar, not as high as the bar to convict somebody of a crime. So prosecutors would go to a grand jury and present some evidence and say, look, we have enough evidence to show that, what is it, probable cause? I don't remember. But they have to show that it's to avoid just charging people for stuff, for example, with no evidence. You have to convince a grand jury that the charges are reasonable based on the evidence. I don't know I forget the exact standard of evidence. So, but with Epstein, there were 2 times he was charged with crimes. He was charged by in the state of Florida for state crimes back in, I believe, 2006, and he was arrested and charged by federal prosecutors in 2019. So if Trump says, hey, release the grand jury testimony. Oh, by the way, here he said testimony. See, I was saying, now I can change my headline back. Because he did say testimony. He said transcripts, I think, in one place. She said, so I was saying, oh, he didn't, that's why I put testimony up here originally. Anyways, this is me talking about my own headline. So it wasn't wrong to say testimony. Anyways, my point is, when Trump says, release the grand jury testimony, well, presumably, he's either talking about the grand jury in Florida that would have been used before charging Epstein in 2006, or the federal grand jury, I assume in New York in 2019. It's got to be one of those two, right? I assume it's one of those two. What other grand jury testimony would you want? But the issue is, with those two possibilities, according to the Washington Post, federal grand jury testimony is by law confidential. But records from a state grand jury that investigated Epstein in 2006 were released last year by a Florida judge. So is there other material that can be released that hasn't been released, right, relating to a grand jury? I don't know. So maybe there's nothing else to be released. If it can't be released in the federal case, and has all of it been released that can be released in the state case? I should probably say testimony up here. Anyways, doesn't matter either way. It's fine. Both words were used. So maybe there'll be nothing released. Maybe there will be nothing released. What if there's nothing released? What if it turns out there can be nothing released because the federal has to stay private and the state's already been released? Will people be angrier now, even angrier? Let's see here. Jane Jones says grand jury testimony cannot be released in the federal case. Yeah, Douthis thinks he must have been talking about the federal one. That would make more sense. But the problem is, again, that, well, at least according to the Washington Post, you can't release that. Let's see here. Now, the Times says, the New York Times says grand jury transcripts are under federal guidelines kept secret to protect crime victims and witnesses. Now, the Times says they're only released under narrowly defined circumstances. So the Times doesn't say it's flat out illegal that they can't be released. The New York Times, though, says they are rarely released under narrowly defined circumstances. Also, the New York Times says that getting the grand jury transcripts released could take months of legal wrangling. Months. So I don't think you're getting any release tomorrow. Pam Bondi says we're going to go to the court tomorrow, and we're going to ask them tomorrow. It doesn't sound like anything's going to get released anytime soon, if ever. JD63 says that won't quiet things down. Thank you, the Sparky pilot, by the way. And McLean33, who says, if Trump signs an executive order, trust me, it will be released. I mean, if the law says it can't be released, then his executive order can't do anything about it. But maybe there's some wiggle room there. I'm not sure. Also, See Through It says the grand jury testimony is a small fraction of the mounds and mounds of evidence that is in the hands of the Trump FBI. I think the New York Times made a similar point, saying what was said in the grand jury would only be a small amount of the evidence, of the material that the federal government has. Little background, well, a couple things. Washington Post says Trump's announcement tonight that he was ordering the release of this grand jury testimony came minutes after Trump pledged to sue the Wall Street Journal over its Thursday evening report, which said that Trump had contributed a drawing of a naked woman to Epstein's 50th birthday album in 2003, and Trump's letter concluded with "Happy birthday and may every day be another wonderful secret," which Trump denies and said he's going to sue the Wall Street Journal, News Corp, and Rupert Murdoch over. As the Washington Post says, the Trump administration earlier this month announced it would not release the files from the case against Epstein, who was federally charged in 2019 with sex trafficking minors. The court records that were released last year showed Florida prosecutors in 2006 heard testimony that Epstein had assaulted multiple teenage girls. The choice not to release the federal government files on Epstein outraged parts of Trump's base, which believes the government is shielding high-profile people involved in the criminal enterprise, and trusted President Trump to treat the case seriously in a broader fight against what they see as the corrupt elite. Oh, this is right from the Washington Post article. The grand jury testimony, okay, even if it were released, the grand jury testimony would constitute only a fraction of the evidence amassed by federal authorities, material broadly referred to by Bondi and others as the Epstein files. So even if it were released, which it sounds like chances are that might not happen, and if it does happen, it might take months, if any of it's released. But if grand jury testimony that has not been released were to be released, it would constitute only a fraction of the evidence amassed by federal authorities, says the Washington Post. New York Times did something similar. The resulting political backlash has reverberated on Capitol Hill, with congressional Democrats delaying Trump's efforts to slash $9 billion in federal spending to force votes on releasing the Epstein files. Also, interestingly, as the Washington Post and others have noted, some prominent Trump allies who have been critical of how the White House has handled the Epstein matter did defend him tonight over this Wall Street Journal story. For example, Laura Loomer said, "I'm calling," she said BS, but the whole word, on this Trump birthday letter to Epstein. She said it's totally fake. Elon Musk, who has been critical recently of Trump, and also who claimed that Trump was listed in the Epstein files, he downplayed the Journal report, saying it really doesn't sound like something Trump would say. Also, as a little background, the Post says the fight over the Epstein files has presented a challenge for Trump, in part because he and some of his closest allies have spent years inflaming public suspicions about the case. Epstein died before his case went to trial, leaving many in the public wondering if other powerful people in his orbit were guilty of similar crimes. Trump in recent years has given a platform to his supporters who have theorized without evidence, says the Washington Post, that prominent Democrats were involved in Epstein's crimes or culpable in his death. Recent polling shows, according to the Post, a significant majority of Americans from both parties believe that the government is withholding information about the case. All right, we'll take some more comments here. I hope I'm not missing any breaking developments on this. It's 12:25 a.m. Yeah, so I don't want to go down this road. I don't want to make a big deal of this, but there is talk on social media, and some people in the chat are talking. As we've talked about, the Wall Street Journal has a story tonight that says that President Trump sent a birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein in 2003, and it included a drawing of a naked woman and also other things. But Trump said on True Social tonight, he said, "I don't draw pictures," but as one of our viewers pointed out, and has been pointed out online, Trump, a drawing he drew of the New York skyline sold for nearly $30,000. I'll post a link so you can see the drawing. I just posted it there. But if you look up Trump drawing, you can find it. I'm not saying Trump is lying. I'm just pointing out that people are talking about this online. Some people have been talking about it in our chat as well. I'll leave it to you to decide what you think about that. Stutz, our viewer, says, just another got him now moment won't work, Democrats. Hang on a second here. I was just going over some of the other messages people have sent me. Paul S. says, what list are we wanting from Bondi? I guess some people think there is a client list. The idea is that there's some list that exists that the government has of people Epstein was allegedly supplying underage women to. 10 days ago, this is a big deal. 10 days ago, the FBI and the Department of Justice denied this. I think that, this memo is so interesting. The whole decision to come out with this memo is so interesting. This was 10 days ago. And they basically said, we've looked through all of our Epstein material. They even looked in cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas to find all of the Epstein-related material, all of it. The Department of Justice and the FBI, they did physical searches. They looked in closets. They got all this material, including more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. But what did they say? They say this review revealed no incriminating client list. There was no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, which sounds like they're saying they found no evidence of criminal wrongdoing by anybody else. Then they say, perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein doesn't serve any of their ends, the ends being combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims. And then they say it is the determination of the Department of Justice and the FBI that no further disclosure of information would be appropriate or warranted. They just say, we're not releasing any more material about Epstein. That's it. It's quite something that they came out with this memo. And this is literally from the DOJ and the FBI. This was 10 days ago. And then they said they had this video showing that nobody entered the Epstein's prison cell before he before he killed himself. But as we talked about earlier, there's at least a minute missing from the video. Ocean's Daughter says, yes, you are releasing more. It's such an interesting document. It doesn't even say, well, we're probably not going to do it. It says, we are not releasing any more of this information. KDLC says, we will never know the truth. Living Doll thinks it's serious gaslighting. There was also this question about whether Dan Bongino, the deputy head of the FBI, would resign over this. Because the reporting suggested that he wanted more information to be released, right? Isn't that what the reporting said? So where is it here? I'll show you. I mean, could we still see Bongino leave? Or is there a world in which Trump lets Bondi go? He's been defending her. He's been defending her. Where is it here? Here, look. This was from just a few days ago. Here's some of the reporting. Furor over Epstein files sparks clash between Bondi and Bongino at the Justice Department. The Justice Department and FBI are struggling to contain the fallout from this week's decision to withhold records from the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation, which rankled influential far-right media personalities and supporters of President Trump. The move, which included the acknowledgement that one particular sought-after document, the client list, never actually existed, sparked a contentious conversation between Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino at the White House this week. Bondi and Bongino had a tense exchange. The Trump administration had hoped that the memo from the DOJ and FBI would be the final word on the saga. But Bondi and Bongino had a tense exchange. I think he said his statement in the press Bondi and Bongino had a tense exchange the following day at the White House, according to a person familiar with the matter. Part of the clash centered on a story from the news organization News Nation that cited a source close to the White House as saying the FBI would have released the Epstein files months ago if it could have done so on its own. The story included statements from Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and FBI Director Kash Patel refuting the premise, but not Bongino. Anyways, there was talk that Bongino was going to resign, possibly. Oh, there's Dan Bongino right there. But and there was reporting that he had not come into work at the end of, was it last week? End of last week, he hadn't come into work, the reporting said. But he showed up on Monday, reportedly. But what I was wondering is, if this whole controversy keeps going, is there any chance Bongino would end up resigning? Is there any chance that Trump could still... There's a lot of his base that's very upset with Pam Bondi. Oh, was it 1 week ago Friday? Was it already a week ago? I'm getting my days wrong. Was it? No, wasn't the Bongino thing... What day is it today? No, today's Friday. It was last weekend. He missed last Friday, as one of our viewers said. Rebecca Peterson says, I love the drama. The Ringer says Bongino can resign and go back to his show. Ari Klassen says, type of story that will capture the imagination for all of 1 week. Well, it's been a big story now for, by my count, at least 11 days. Because 11 days ago was when the Justice Department and FBI memo came out saying there's no client list and we're not going to release any more information. I mean, it has had legs. Is it going to continue having legs? I don't know. The dude thinks the Wall Street Journal has more documents. We'll have to see what happens. I want to see if anything else came out tonight. Martin Gingrich says, is the popular consensus they are hiding things? I don't know. As I mentioned, the Washington Post had said that the Washington Post said recent polling shows a significant majority of Americans from both parties believe the government is withholding information about the case. Thanks also to Sandorum. I appreciate it. Did I miss Jean-Paul Lachance giving more memberships? Did I miss that? I think Jean-Paul gave more memberships. I think Jean-Paul has given 220 memberships, as amazing as that sounds. Thank you so much, Jean-Paul Lachance. Wow. I hope he got 220 thank yous. Thanks also, Rich Hallquist, over there on Twitch for your support. Gee whiz. Okay, something interesting that the Wall Street Journal said tonight. So, again, the Wall Street Journal reported that President Trump sent Epstein back in 2003. Trump and Epstein used to be friends. That's widely known. But they're saying that Trump sent Epstein a letter for his birthday in 2003 that had a drawing of a naked woman and also said, among other things, happy birthday and may every day be another wonderful secret, which Trump angrily denied tonight and said he's going to sue the Wall Street Journal over. One thing that the Wall Street Journal said is that the Justice Department did not respond to requests, to questions about whether that letter, and the letter was parts of, allegedly, of a birthday album that was given to Epstein. Did the government have that letter? Is that part of the evidence that the government already has? So they reached out, and Wall Street Journal said it's unclear if the letter is something that the government, they released the memo like 11 days ago talking about they've gone through all they reviewed all their Epstein material. But do they have a copy? Do they have this letter? I don't know. Ranch Waste says the letter doesn't sound like him at all. Analog computing thinks the letter is such weak sauce and timing is sus. Can we link an image of that drawing? I have not seen an image of that drawing. At this point, I would not be surprised if somebody leaked it at some point. TBA thinks the withheld information is allegations or evidence related to Maxwell's appeal, and they can't release it or there is no benefit to it. I would encourage you, if you haven't read it, to read the Department of Justice and FBI memo from 11 days ago. You can read their whole thing. We already read it on air. But they said that of the stuff they reviewed, much of the material they have, they said, is subject to court-ordered sealing. Okay, so they did say this. They said a lot of the evidence, that a lot of the material they have, the government, is sealed by the court, so they can't release it. And they said only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial. Also, the way this reads, it says, as the seal served only to protect victims. I think this means, and the material did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. It's kind of written a little poorly, I think, right here. But again, they said they found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials. They will not release child pornography. They said Epstein, there was a large volume of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. They do have a lot of pictures of Epstein. They're not going to release those, they say. No client list. No evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. So, I mean, you can read this and they said they got a lot of material. I can't tell you exactly what they have, you know? Secotioid says, how hard is it to redact the victims' names? Desaid says, smells like a cover-up. I mean, at this point, clearly there's all kinds of theories about what's in this material that they haven't released. So, if they don't release it, those theories are going to go on and on and on. Martin says, why didn't left use this against when they could? Thank you, Martin Gingrich. Paul S. says, big question, who is the source of the Wall Street Journal letter? The Wall Street Journal said that they reviewed, that they saw the letter, and they said, where did they say they got it from? They said that they actually, somebody showed it to them. I don't know that they said they talked to people familiar with the documents. So they didn't say who they got it from or who showed it to them. But they did say that they talked to people familiar with them. So maybe that's who they got it from. Who knows? Who knows? They literally, they said that they reviewed documents. So I don't know if they reviewed photocopies or what. It's a good question. But they said they have reviewed the letter. All right. Let's see. Gray Fox says another mystery source hit piece like the last 10 years. One of our viewers mentioned that Maxwell. As one of our viewers mentioned, the Wall Street Journal in their story tonight says Ghislaine Maxwell did not respond to a letter requesting an interview sent to her in prison. So how about the, one of our viewers says, one of our viewers just said something like, it's never going to be enough. And people are always going to think there's a cover-up. So is there a chance? Uncle Floyd GG says, does anybody believe the government will hold the government accountable? So is there a chance that Trump will just order more evidence released? Now, you might say, well, he did that tonight, didn't he? Because they said they weren't going to release anything more. Didn't he say that they're going to release more? As I mentioned, what Trump did tonight is say that grand jury testimony will be released. But as multiple publications have said, that the Florida grand jury testimony has already been released, and the Washington Post says it's illegal to release the federal grand jury testimony, and the New York Times said, while not totally unlawful, it rarely happens. It would likely be limited and take months to do. So this does not seem like it's going to be some big release of a lot of documents. And both of those publications pointed out that the grand jury material would just be a fraction of the evidence of the material that the government actually has. So a whole other question is, let's say this furor doesn't go away and President Trump's supporters are still angry with him about this, about stuff not getting released. Is there a point weeks or months from now when President Trump just says, okay, we're just going to release a lot more stuff? I don't know. Hold on a second here. Dan Marshall says, delay, 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 old game plan. Old game plan. Jean-Paul Lachance thinks they won't afraid of truth. TK says we don't want any grand jury testimony, we want the Epstein files. Tom Colby says he'll lose the midterms over this Epstein thing. That will allow the Democrat dogs into attempt impeachment again. Dangerous game, this non-disclosure. It will damage his legacy. He needs something solid. Chris RD44 says he thinks it's just going to go away. Well, we'll have to see what happens. D-Lyn Dop Hanneman says, are there statute of limitations to charge others with sex crimes? I had heard a legal analyst on TV a couple days ago say that there is a statute of limitations. I don't know. I mean, we could be talking state or federal. But he seemed pretty confident that, like, people who may have been with Jeffrey Epstein doing something with him would now be too late to charge them. I don't know that that's true. I do not know. That's a good legal question. General Mart thinks MAGA people were duped about this. Accord Blaze thinks it's a cover-up. Guys, let me just do one last check and see. I don't know if we're going to get any more big updates tonight on this. By the way, President Trump did just post on Truth Social. It's not about Epstein. He said, House approves $9 billion cuts package, including atrocious NPR and public broadcasting, where billions of dollars were wasted. Republicans have tried doing this for 40 years and failed, but no more. This is big. He didn't talk about Epstein. I believe, so the federal government, I believe, has passed, indeed, some cuts to PBS and NPR funding. But I believe most of their funding, PBS and NPR, does not come from the federal government, if I have that right. But let me check. Let me double check on this. Here's an article about it. Searching for pennies, with the cut in federal funding, public broadcasters are looking to cope. And it could, I think it hurt the local stations more. Yes, so the Senate and the House approved a measure that would eliminate nearly $1.1 billion that had already been appropriated for NPR and PBS. Trump had called for the cuts, saying public media's news programming was biased against him and fellow Republicans, and threatened GOP members of Congress with primary challenges if they didn't fall in line. The federal money is appropriated to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which distributes to NPR and PBS. Roughly 70% of the money goes directly to the 330 PBS and 246 NPR stations across the country. The cuts are expected to weigh most heavily on smaller public media outlets away from big cities, and it's likely some won't survive. As many as 80 NPR stations, these are the individual stations, may face closure in the next year. So you have the overall PBS and NPR, but you also have the individual statements in different cities. I believe with NPR and PBS, if I have this right, most of their funding does not come from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I don't want to get too deep in this road because it's not the topic of the stream, but President Trump mentioned it, so I was going to mention it here. Let's see here. Yeah, like the New York Times says, only a small percentage of NPR and PBS funding comes from the federal government. But they talk about how the funding cuts would hit many local stations quite hard. Anyways, that is a different story, though. One of our, just as an example here, one of our viewers, Allison Hargroves, was not happy with these cuts. She said she has donated tonight to PBS and NPR. All right, I was just checking to see, I found that because I was checking Trump's True Social. I was just checking to see if I had any more updates for you tonight, at least right now, on all of this Epstein stuff. That's what I was checking. But I'm not seeing it at the moment. Should we do one last poll? Let's do one last poll. Oh, the Ringa X said, can we mention Trump's illness? It's a condition. I don't really want to get into it, but I posted, the White House said today that Trump, I'm just going to read this to you. It's off topic. I'll read it to you. Quickly, but it's off topic. I'm not aware, nothing he released that was released about him, say, having a very harmful health condition in and of itself. Let me put it that way. Here is what the White House said today. Well, here is what the doctor said today. The White House doctor. In recent weeks, President Trump, doctor to the president, in recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House Medical Unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies, bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency. Chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, says the doctor, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. Lab testing included a complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, coagulation profile, D-dimer, B-type natriuretic peptide, and cardiac biomarkers. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of the aspirin therapy. Again, I don't really want to get into this because it's not the topic of the stream. I am not a medical expert. I have not heard medical experts today say they think he has some, very harmful, serious condition, put it that way, but I'm not a doctor, so I I will let you talk to amongst yourselves or doctor people about it. But I wanted to mention it. So thanks for reminding me about it. By the way, thanks to Ringa X and the Poonji, I'll say. The Poonji. Marilyn Gardner, thank you. Successive Nows, thanks for your support. Igor Tigor, thank you. R. Gravy. Nick Fornelli, our new member. BC Mike. Daisy Harmonica, thank you. And Sander M. and Joshua Martinez. Thanks, Joshua. Who says grand jury testimony can be redacted under Jenks. I'm not a legal expert, so I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not saying you're wrong. Thank you, Nettie G. Nettie RG, who says even if they release the court docs, it won't show anyone's names, as the case was against Epstein. Need unbiased review of the docs, videos, and photos. Thanks also to the Sparky pilot. Oh, by the way, AP really quick said, here's what to know about Trump's condition, chronic venous insufficiency. Swollen legs led him to get diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency. It's a fairly common condition among older adults. It requires a thorough checkout to rule out more serious causes of swelling. It happens when veins in the legs cannot properly carry blood back to the heart. This can lead to blood pooling in the lower legs. In addition to swelling, usually around the feet and ankles, symptoms can include legs that are achy, feeling heavy, or tingly, and varicose veins. Severe cases could trigger leg sores known as ulcers. What causes it? Overcoming gravity to pump blood from the feet all the way up to the heart is a challenge, especially when someone is sitting or standing for long periods. So legs' veins are lined with one-way valves that keep blood from sliding backward on the journey. Anything that damages those valves can lead to chronic venous insufficiency. Risk factors can include blood clots, vein inflammation known as phlebitis, or being overweight. Doctors must rule out serious causes of leg swelling, such as heart problems, kidney disease, or blood clots. Ultrasound exams of the leg veins can help confirm chronic venous insufficiency. According to the Cleveland Clinic, treatment can include wearing compression stockings, elevating the legs, and achieving a healthy weight. Also, exercise, especially walking, is recommended because strong leg muscles can squeeze veins in a way that helps them pump blood. Medications and medical procedures are available for the more advanced cases. Trump's doctor, by the way, as we just said that there were no signs of heart failure, kidney impairment, or systemic illness. Sean Barbarella, physician to the president, said that. All right. I think, guys, we might be getting that time. I think we might have done what we came here to do. I think it might be that time. 1:04 a.m. And more importantly, I don't have other updates for you. Okay. I think it's our time. Hey, I really appreciate you guys being here. Final poll. Should we do one last poll? Some people say they want one last poll. I guess I said I was going to do one last poll. Am I going to cover it if grand jury testimony is released? Well, from what I can tell, if that happens, it won't be happen for months, if it ever happens. It's possible. I mean, I don't know if what it'll be. So we'll see. I'll keep an eye. It's possible. What should we do a poll on? How about Dan Bongino? How about will Dan Bongino resign in the next month? That's what I'm asking. Will Dan Bongino resign in the next month? Remember, he was supposedly thinking of resigning because he was dissatisfied with the White House, with the Trump administration's response to the demand to release Epstein material. All right, I'm asking that question. As we start wrapping things up, I will ask that question. Jen's GG thinks Trump is fine. He has gravy leg. I don't even know what that means. All right, let me just finish posting the poll. Yeah, I mean, if there's some big new development with the Epstein stuff, we can cover it. So I'll be keeping an eye on it. Okay, I appreciate, by the way, I'll say this first. I appreciate everybody joining our stream tonight to cover the latest in the Epstein files controversy, the Epstein files story. We talked about a bunch of it tonight. And we read a bunch of your comments, which I like doing. So I appreciate you joining us. I will post updates on my X account when we're not on the air. You can follow me over there at Lookner on X for updates. And if there's big news, we'll come back and cover it. Our viewer Alicia calls it a cover-up. By the way, just a little poll result here. I said, there's Dan Bongino right there via AP. I said, will Dan Bongino resign in the next month? On YouTube, 56% say no, 44% say yes. On Facebook right now, 100% say no. How about Twitch? What do they have to say? Uh, 65% say no, 34% say yes. So more of you think no than yes, but there is a sizable minority of you who thinks yes. Cat Love Dreaming Preach thinks he will fall in line. Hey, thank you guys for joining the stream. Subscribe, follow the channel. We cover all kinds of live breaking news without an agenda, agenda-free TV, make sure you turn notifications on. I don't know when big news is going to happen. I didn't know President Trump was going to announce this tonight, saying he wants Pam Bondi to release Epstein-related grand jury testimony. Although I don't know if she can. I don't know if that can be released. But regardless, turn on the notifications if you don't want to miss a stream. We have our own notification system. It works awesome. It's really reliable. It's free. The link to the notifications, the mods can post in the chat. Is this how it is? Maybe I can trigger it too. You can find the link also on YouTube and Facebook in the description of this video. You can find the link to the notifications. Hey, by the way, thanks to voting in our poll. All right, I'm gonna end the poll right now. Hang on one moment. So I really appreciate you joining, and also thanks to everybody who's been posting their comments. We had a lot of comments tonight, and I appreciate you letting me read your comments on the air. And hey, huge thanks to our moderators for being there. We had Robert's May Queen moderating over there on YouTube tonight, and thanks to our other moderators. They are the ones keeping the chat under control and civil and respectful. Over on Twitch, moderators like Bash and Girl, Idaho Star, Matthew Kohai 3, Sarah, and our other moderators over there. On Facebook, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley, thanks for modding. I got to thank our Facebook subscribers and Twitch subscribers. I should have done that earlier. I'm sorry. I apologize. Did I get all of Jean-Paul Lachance's memberships thanked? I hope so. I hope I did. Thanks, Successive Nows, by the way. Thanks to, Linda Belglary and Misha moderating for on X. All of our moderators, thank you. Thanks to everybody who donated. That's so nice of you guys. That is what allows this channel to exist, your support. So huge thanks to you. Jean-Paul Lachance, I think, gave over 200 memberships. I hope I got them all. Our viewer Golabki Superstar says, "Thank you for your attention to this matter." But thank you. I think I thanked everybody. Hopefully. Oh no, I didn't thank BBJ9594 for the gift sub on Twitch. Thank you so much. If you ever want to donate, you go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. But huge thanks for your support. And hey, we do. Oh, another good way to find out when we're going live is follow us on X. If you're on X, at AgendaFreeTV, I always post there when we're going live at AgendaFreeTV, and I post updates about the channel there. So follow us over there. Hey, also, we have a chat where you can chat with other viewers on Discord. It's free. A lot of our viewers like doing the Discord chat. Check out our chat. It's the same link as the notifications link. It's the same one. So check out our Discord chat. Thanks so much to our Discord moderators as well for all your help. I hope I thanked everybody who donated. I think I got everybody. Also, let's see. I would suggest if you watch on YouTube, turn on the YouTube notifications, because that can be helpful to find out when we're live. But it's confusing to do. Well, it's a little hard to figure out. So if you're on YouTube and you want to get the YouTube notifications, you got to subscribe to the channel. Then you got to click this bell, the notifications bell, and then you got to say I want all notifications. So subscribe, click the bell, choose all notifications. Oops, here we go. All. Okay, hey, shout out to our Facebook subscribers, Robert Rial II, Rita Evans Lang, Kay and Margaret, thanks for subscribing. By the way, Robert says that Ghislaine Maxwell. Robert thinks that Ghislaine Maxwell wants out of prison. She's trying to play it's all a conspiracy card to get free from prison. That's what Robert thinks. Thanks, Aaron Van Ness, for being a subscriber on Facebook, and all of our other subscribers over there. Thank you. Thanks also to our Twitch subscribers so much. People like BBJ9594, also Matthew Kohai 3, Diggleville, Jax Haku, Wall Street and Shaggy, Sarah. Did I say Matthew Kohai 3? Matthew Kohai 3. Thank you, Twitch subscribers. Douthis. Thank you. Douthis thinks information is never getting released. Face it. That's what Douthis says. Thanks, Iloso and LCS Fox for being subscribers too. Allistic, Artful Nothing. All of our other subscribers over there on Twitch. And our YouTube members. Kiwi NZ. Mamey Oil here. Fred McFarley. CAC 813, that guy from that thing. YouTube switched it so that a lot of people's usernames have numbers in them now. But you might be able to switch that. Mine stayed the same. But you might want to look into that if your name got switched on YouTube recently. Maybe there's a way you can change it back to the original one or close to the original one. It's confusing for me because I was used to the different names I would see, and now a lot of them are different. Lex, thanks for being a member. Zilicia, Bella, Turned Off, Shawnee Ann, Anthony Parf, Lex, Thomas Darwin, TJ Adams, Darth Pronator, The Real, Me the Bat, Eric John, Mame Oil Here, CAC 813, Walkie Talkie, Betsy's Tag, Ann65, Fred McFarley, Western Tanager, thanks for being a member. Don Video Guy, Anthony Poff, Awesome Dude, Chantilly Cakes, Eric John. Eric says, why is Trump all of a sudden getting so defensive about the Epstein thing? Eric John thinks there's no clear admission of guilt than to get so defensive about it. That's what Eric John thinks. Thanks, UV Lightning. Mame Oil Here, Ethereal Planets. Sambino. Josh Palmer. Lawfully Armed. Kiwi NZ, thanks for being a member. Jason Curling, thanks for watching. Linda Goy Till, 6789 UIOP. Kathleen Anderson, thanks for watching. Distant Galaxy, thanks for watching. Oh, we gotta wrap this up. We gotta wrap it up. Oh, Paul Anderson was modding too. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Jen Farah, for watching. Melissa Terry, D. Lynn Dopp Hanneman, Brendan Brumond. All right, guys, that is it. Thanks for our update. We've been bringing you the latest updates on the Epstein files situation, including the news that President Trump told Pam Bondi tonight to release Epstein-related grand jury testimony, but we don't really know what's going to come out of that or if any is actually going to be released. As we explained, the Florida grand jury testimony apparently has already been released, and it might be illegal to release the federal grand jury testimony. Either way, we talked about a bunch of other things as well related to this, but that is it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate everybody who's been in the chat, and we will see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.